conversations about the toll of political life and when is it time to pack it in? So to talk about this, it's time for the Power Panel. Shachi Kurl is the president of Angus Reid Institute. James Moore is a senior advisor at Denton's and a former Conservative cabinet minister. Andrew Thompson is a former Saskatchewan finance minister, now chief of government relations at the University of Toronto. And Michelle Cadario is the former deputy chief of staff to Paul Martin, now CEO of Vanguard Strategy. In part of the Liberal election campaign, we know that they get out there trying to recruit women to run because there is a resistance to run because of whether it is, whether it's sexism that candidates face, whether that the hassles related to that and then the setbacks related to that, whether the toll it's going to take on families, that affects both women and men. What do you make of this conversation at this moment in time?
Well, I think it's long overdue, but it's also probably, I'm not sure it's going to have an actual finale to it. Because it's nice to say that, we want to bring more balance to public life. And as someone who tried to recruit a lot of women candidates to run across the country, you had to be honest with them about just the toll it is going to take. It's really hard, and women are held to a different standard. And getting them to run in the first place is even more difficult. And so I hope it doesn't dissuade anybody or dissuade any women, because we do need more women in Parliament and across the country and frankly around the world. I'm not sure if society is ready to give on just what it would take to keep them there.
Andrew, by all indications, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is going to run again. Is there anything, do you think, he could learn from this lesson or learn from this moment about his own future? Do you think that there perhaps might be some sort of learning moment when it comes to knowing when to go?
This is very much a question of personal interest. The Prime Minister here says that he wants to have another go. He still has the energy to do it. Any of us who've been in public life know that when you hit that point where you don't have the energy, that's the time to go. And I'm sure that's what happened to James. I know that's what happened to me. But there's just a point where you say it's not, the trade-off isn't worth it anymore. And I think it's getting a lot worse now. I mean, it's a lot tougher on politicians today than it was on me 15 years ago, because you're in a 24-hour news cycle. You are in a social media fishbowl. You have all sorts of people who are unhinged from any kind of social norm who seem quite compelled to tell you what they think without ever editing it. And so the kind of barrage that the politicians today take is different than what it used to be. I think it's really important for politicians to be able to say, look, that's enough. Undoubtedly, women, visible minorities, other minority politicians face more of that, but I think that's true across the board. So, if Prime Minister Trudeau believes he's got it in him, if he thinks that there's a winning possibility, I can see why he wants to stay. If at some point, though, he decides, you know what, it's better to turn it over either strategically or for personal reasons, I think we have to respect that.
Shachi, part of the issue has to do with the vitriol that politicians face when it comes to social media, conspiracy theories that have just been fueled and fueled and fueled through the pandemic, and with prominent conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories picking up traction on social media. That is a factor there. Do you think that that's going to have an impact on people when they make decisions? Do they want to run and serve in public office?
It's already having an impact, Katie. It's already affecting the decisions of women in the C-suite, in the public eye, who are approached to run, who take one look at that. And by the way, they're already experiencing it because they are already high-functioning, high-level women in the public eye. And they say, I want this even worse. I want this tenfold worse than I'm already dealing with. I can't speak to the experiences of James and Andrew and Michelle, and they've spoken about it very eloquently. But I do know what it's like to be a woman in the public eye and how it is getting worse out there in terms of the vitriol, in terms of the abuse, in terms of the misogyny, in terms of the threats of violence, sexual violence, death threats. And the thing is, we don't talk about this. We don't talk about the fact that it's out there, that so many female politicians that I talk to and others in the public eye are having to add locks to their doors, deal with security systems, apologize to their colleagues for the fact that there's now an enhanced or heightened security measures at their place of work because of what they're facing. And, you know, we're in a catch-22 as women, because if you talk about it, you're either faced with a response that, well, hey, you signed up for this. This is what comes with it. You're asking for it. Or you're accused of being weak and not being able to take it. So we just don't talk about it that much.
And then the conversation on the flip side of that is, okay, so if you don't get involved because you don't want to deal with that, understandably, does that mean the people who are behind the vitriol, do they win? When you remove yourself from those spaces on social media, I know it's a debate that many journalists have, you know, this is an unsafe space for politicians. This is an unsafe space for people in the public eye. This is an unsafe space for journalists. And if you remove yourself, are you to protect your own sanity, your mental health, or your physical safety? If you remove yourself, does that mean they win? Or like what? I don't think anyone has a solution here. I don't think anyone has any answers here. And if we did, we'd all be following it because we just don't know. On that. Oh, go ahead.
So it is a call to action. One thing, Katie, is that there are people out there, a small sliver of the population, who are ugly and vicious, and they thrive in this kind of politics. Think of a guy like Matt Gaetz, who likes this kind of stuff. And so if the public square is allowed to be tainted like this, people like that will run and will thrive and will do well, and then they will invite the counterbalance to them, and it just spirals down and gets worse. So there is a call to action here.
All right. On that very uplifting note, we will take a pause for a moment. We're going to take a breath.